Final Countdown!
The sequel.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 57 of the Secondary Heroes podcast. This week, it's part 2 of our Best Sequel Ever Bracket Challenge. And like any good sequel, it's bigger, and there's a brand new cast of characters. This year, host Trevor, and joining me as usual is...
Hey guys, it's Brock.
Ooh, on the second recording, this is DeLorean Wolfgang.
Second recording, what are you talking about? Just kidding. And also joining us tonight, we thought we would bring in some guests to help us with this. Because this is a secondary bracket, it's big to us, and we want to make sure that there's a tiebreaker if necessary. So joining us tonight is our friend of the program, Sully. Would you like to introduce yourself, sir?
What's up, fanatics and movie fans? Yep, it's Sully. I have been prepping for this moment my entire life, and I can finally use my movie knowledge for good.
Nice. And back in the show again is our friend Corgi Commander. Welcome back.
Thank you for having me again. Excited for this. Movie knowledge. My thing, you know.
Sounds like you're
That's what we
reading from
brought you
Post-it
on.
notes you wrote.
My thing. I am not held up at gunpoint. I also like the shirt because the sequel to the movie is actually one of my favorites. The Secret of the Ooze.
Not into the ooze. What
The
was it?
Secret of the
Into the Ooze.
It literally
Ooze.
just
That was
said
the
it.
adult film.
That was different. Yeah, that
Oh,
was something else.
Solid.
wasn't there that day.
Secret of the Come out of the shell.
Vanilla Ice came out with a great song on that one too.
Yeah.
Ah, the
What
good
a
old
beat.
days. Why can't movies be more like those?
Right.
Actually, more like the first one. The
I
second
was
one
gonna
wasn't
say, be careful what you wish for.
Dude, that first one was so good, though. Actually, we're gonna talk about the first ones. There we go.
The second one
Yeah.
had Rocksteady and Bebop.
No, it didn't.
Technically, it didn't.
Those
right?
are fake Rocksteady and
Oh,
Bebop.
it's-
That wasn't even Rock.
The
Wait, are
fake-
you talking about the Michael Bay ones or the old '80s ones?
No, he's talking about Secret of the Ooze.
Secret of the Ooze.
Yeah. It
Well,
had
I mean, they were the
knockoff.
knockoff Rocksteady.
Oh, they were super knockoff. It was almost like someone never had seen Ninja Turtles before. Anyways, we're not actually talking about
Right.
Ninja Turtles. We're talking about a bracket. We're talking about second movies in our bracket. I hope everybody at home filled out their bracket. I know we saw a few on the Twitters and everything like that, and they look
Some
great.
good choices too. I saw some interesting. A lot of diversity in the choices too, which I appreciate. You know?
Diverse, an old wooden ship in the Civil War times. So, on Anchorman, people, we're talking movies. You got to
I'm
be
fact
on
checking this.
stuff.
Hold on.
Yeah, I'm sure there's
I
a
don't
spreadsheet
believe-
going over there for Corgi.
Yes. Sorry to derail the conversation, Trevor. Please lead us in this
Well,
discussion.
Hopefully, you did have your bracket filled out. If you didn't, you can, of course, find it to keep track of where we are. But luckily, last week, if you did not listen to part 1, or you did, 1 and 2 won every single bracket. So now we're down to our Elite 8, where it's essentially the 1 and 2 seeds, which that's probably for the best. And then everyone who filled them out online, we had 5 people pick Captain America Winter Soldier, 4 people pick Empire Strike Back, 2 people The Dark Knight, 1 person Terminator, 1 person Harry Potter, 1 person Lord of the Rings. So there's a lot of different diversification.
Wow.
That's awesome. People
I'm
like,
really surprised. Well, we'll talk about that because we're going to get to.
Yeah.
you
I
know,
do
And
want
so-
to give a quick shout out though. One of those brackets that did come in was from one of my friends, Brent. He is a doctor and he is working his buns off right now trying to help out and keep people safe from everything that's going on. So I want to give a cool shout out to him because he
Big
is doing
applause, yeah.
something really great right now.
God bless
Anyways,
that man.
and I'm pretty sure he picked Empire Strikes Back to win the whole thing. Let's see if he's right. Let's move on.
Bold
So,
Scott.
in case you are keeping score at home, we do have some ground rules. This isn't just like, oh, I like this movie. This is bigger than that. So, the idea is that is the sequel better than the original? Is the sequel better than any follow-up that comes after it? Does the sequel push the whole series forward so it's still relevant in pop culture and a big deal? And then does the sequel introduce great new characters that have their own lasting impact beyond that movie itself?
So there you go. There you have it.
Do you fellas know the rules? Because I'm always confused on them.
We've
I just
listened
picked the
before. We
ones
know
that I
DeLorean.
liked.
That's right. You
No,
don't play by the rules, anyways.
I feel pretty strong about this. I mean, with the exception of one of the films that was listed in the first round from the Cats and Owls franchise, I feel like all these movies belong in this bracket. So
Okay.
I didn't like how close Shrek and Aliens was, though.
Was that weird?
Fun,
Give you
though.
a call
That was
back.
weird. That was a weird
geographically
flex.
or color palette?
No, there was how close Shrek almost won.
I know.
Just for the heck of it, the dark horse.
Yeah, Cinderella.
I would have raged
That would have
quit
been
this whole
great.
thing if Shrek 2 won
would've-
over Aliens.
Alex would have called me and like, hold on, is Shrek still in there? No, I'm good. Thanks, guys.
I'm busy that night. I got to rewash my hair.
You haven't said the night yet. Yeah, I'm still busy.
I have to remake my bed for the 5th time today. Sorry. Since we're all stuck in home. Anyways, let's carry on with our first bracket.
Right. So before we do move on, we do want to give a shout out to the movies that didn't make it into our cut of 16. So Frozen 2, X-Men 2, Scream 2, Born Supremacy, Too Fast, Too Furious, Final Destination 2, Rocky 2, Gremlins 2, Die Hard 2, Batman Returns, Predator 2, Ghostbusters 2. All didn't make it. I'm sorry.
Gremlins 2 didn't make it?
Oh,
Ah,
wow.
What a good movie.
Ghostbusters 2 is fantastic. I
Yeah, it's good.
almost think
It's a good movie.
2
It's
is better than the first.
I don't know.
Oh,
I don't
I said
know.
it. I said it. No, I'm not taking it back
How
either.
many people think that there's a Ghostbusters 3? They're like, they swear there's a third movie.
No.
They need to
Like,
play
yeah,
the
talking
video
about the
game. The
reboot?
video game.
No. Like, before they had the reboots, and you were like, oh yeah, I like the third one better. I'm like, there was no third
That's
one.
probably
Like,
part
no,
of the
there was.
Mandela effect or something. Don't worry about that.
you know, interesting fact. I worked at video stores in high school and college, and there were several movies that were missing movies in what would have been the franchise. Like there was House 1, House 2, House 4. There was never a House 3. And people would
What?
come in and fight me on this all the time, and I'd have to break out because we didn't have IMDb back in the those days, and I'd have to break out the big book that we had and show them that had all the movie titles.
Wasn't there a house that had a sequel but didn't have the name like a number in it though, in the series? I could have
It might have-
sworn as a
It might have come later, like they may have done some
Story
sort of
time
reboot.
with the
There
old
was
that's a good
also
series.
Leonard Part 7 with Bill Cosby, but there were no 1 through 6, and I would have that fight with people all the time.
Of course.
Now no one would care, but at the
No.
time,
I'm
I
still
don't think
waiting
people
for
care.
History of the World Part 2.
Oh, always.
well, it is History of the World Part 2. There was no Part 1.
Let's try. There's one. It was the opposite, the back way.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
You found a third one.
There you go.
I digress.
But there's some good ones on that list of honorable mentions. Some good secondary heroes on that list for sure.
I feel like Too Fast, Too Furious was robbed, but to be fair, it was the worst in the series. So
Yeah, it was.
Wait, Tokyo Drift wasn't worse?
Ooh.
I don't know.
Seriously,
I never
you
saw any of
tread
them. I saw the
lightly,
first
sir.
one, and that was about it.
you
Wow.
tread lightly from here on out, or I will rage quit this whole thing. If this were Letterkenny, I'm yellow carding you right now, sir.
This,
I haven't made it that far in the series. I'm too busy watching
Did
Frasier.
it.
Okay, so where we starting, Trevor?
So we'll start in the upper left corner of our bracket. We have
All right.
sci-fi's showdown between Empire Strikes Back and Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan.
Okay.
Come on, guys. I don't know if there's really any contest here. I mean,
Whoa. You
are
say
you
that.
kidding?
You say that.
I'm
say that,
definitely saying that.
But
I think
I
my
would
choice
love to hear
might
the
surprise
rebuttal. Let's hear the rebuttal on. Yeah. Anyways, yeah.
let's start with
I'm-
Sully. Sully, what's your choice?
Yeah, let's start with the wrong one first. Go ahead.
you. Oh, all right. How are we going to play like that? All these are tough matchups. I think the one we're going to do next is going to be the most difficult one. But this first one, Empire Strikes Back versus Star Trek II: Wrath of Khan. I saw
Mhm.
both of these at the theater as a kid. Watched many of them over and over again through the years. And I'm going to have to go with Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan.
There you go.
Wow.
Just because if in per the rules that were laid out for us earlier, as far as impact on the franchise, if you have ever watched the original Star Trek film,
Right.
it is a difficult watch.
Terrible.
It is
Yeah.
slow and long, and there's at least a 10-minute scene where they just show him docking a ship with no talking whatsoever. So you go from that to Wrath of Khan is one of the most iconic films in history. I mean, just Khan was probably one of the top 10 villains ever in
Ever.
a film. And then and just like Prague just did, it generated that classic Shatner screaming Khan, which is just pop culture fire right there. Now, I love Empire Strikes Back, but if I got to put them against one another, Star Trek II Wrath of Khan.
Woo! Bringing the fire early.
Wow.
All right. Okay.
Well, it's good that we got that out of the way really.
I do want to hear what Corgi has to say in response to that, though, because he had some fire going too.
No, I was just ribbing subtly. Mine was Empire Strikes Back. That was easy for me. I watched 1 and 2 of Star Trek. Was never a big Trekkie, so they never really held that high of a place in my heart. But Empire Strikes Back, I mean, the bad guys won. You know, that threw you for a loop as a kid. It was Han and Kryptonite. You know, the reveal of Luke and Vader and all that. So it was. I don't know. It was mine.
Scene alone.
The opening scene. Like, I wanted to play that in a video game, and when they finally had the video game out, I'm like, okay, we have to play the Hoth one. You know, you need to tie up an AT-AT, whatever you want to call it, but you had to tie one up. You know,
That's a debate for another episode.
Actually, that is a fun debate, and I would love to know what people say.
Later.
Okay, all right. AT-AT.
Nope. It's definitely Empire Strikes Back for me. I mean, character development. It pushed. I mean, the first one did set the bar high, but to be able to go above and beyond that bar was what put it for me. No offense to Trekkie fans, but Star Wars is mine.
Absolutely no offense to Trekkie fans. I mean, Star Trek is such a fun show. The movies are fun, but I mean, one of the rules was pop culture relevance. What's more relevant right now, or really got in the last 30 years, than Star Wars? I mean, Star Trek gets left behind all the time. I mean, I think right now it's getting a little bit of a resurgence with Picard, but I mean, he had nothing to do with Star Trek II in the Wrath of Khan. So,
of course he does. No, see, because we're seeing the whole connection of the series. Picard doesn't exist if there's no Star Trek II.
But Picard could have existed. I mean,
no, they would have never made it. If Star Trek II isn't successful, they'd never do Star Trek again because the first movie was so bad.
Well,
there's no more Star Trek ever again.
Right. They probably would have never made any more movies. They probably would have kept
TV
with the
shows,
TV
anything.
shows.
Everything. No,
shows.
CBS is, Sony done with all Star Trek stuff.
That was their last ditch effort.
That's why it's
That's
so
My
important.
vote's Empire Strikes Back. How about you guys?
All right, Trevor, what do you got?
My only hesitation, like, Empire Strikes Back should be an easy choice. My only hesitation is that The Last Jedi is better than Empire Strikes Back. I know no one believes that at all.
No, it is.
So, if you're taking like a sequel within sequels,
I know,
of course it is. One of the ground rules is it better than every other future film that follows it?
Oh no, he did make that rule. He did.
Yeah,
he did. Whew.
So that's the only hesitation,
So
because
what's your
Last
choice gonna
Jedi
be?
doesn't obviously exist without Empire Strikes Back, but then there's the whole negative kind of Star Wars mentality we've gotten also, which is this whole part you have to tie into the pop culture relevancy.
Right.
That people aren't excited about Star Wars anymore.
Right. So what's your vote? What's your vote?
Well, okay, but could
Oh,
that
he's not
just
gonna tell us.
because?
Okay.
Could that be because? I'm sorry, Prague.
You're good.
Could it be because it's oversaturated at this point?
Could be, or it could just be
Because of
storytelling.
how well Empire Strikes Back did. I guess you could say it's oversaturated because of that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Empire Strikes Back never really connected with me. Like, I know people, it's always my favorite. I'd like A New Hope more than Empire Strikes Back, and I don't have a problem with Ewoks and Return of the Jedi. So Empire Strikes Back, it's on tier, but I never said, it's way better than 1 and 3. So I never had that whole fascination with Empire Strikes Back. I love the idea, but I think if I was a kid back in 1981, when Darth Vader says, "I'm your father," rather than you knowing that going into the movie
your
when
life,
you're
right.
growing up,
You
it
knew
doesn't
that.
mean as much to you.
It means nothing to you.
Blew
And-
my
and-
mind.
And the introduction of Yoda. I mean, that he was like my just all-time favorite when I first watched.
That's
I
a
was
good
like,
point. Good
I
point.
want to see
To
more
create
Yoda.
characters. Yeah. Empire Strikes Back introduces Yoda, and Yoda creates his own different branch of everything. This is a tough one. This isn't just some easy slam dunk thing.
Agreed.
Oh, look at that ear.
Yeah, it was
Did we hear Prague side
Yeah,
yet?
Prague. Let's go.
I was hoping to hear Trevor first to see what his response was.
He's being coy.
He is being coy. I don't like it.
So, okay, at this point, we've got 2 for Empire Strikes Back and 1 for Star Trek. So, and Trevor's waiting for Prague's
on the
answer,
fence, I
and
think. I
Prague's
was waiting for
for
his.
Trevor's answer.
All right.
So this is a lot of fun.
With all of these, I'm going to ride both sides. Just heads up.
That's what she said.
So I'm on the same page with Trevor here. So Empire Strikes Back is my 3rd favorite of the original trilogy. It has some of my favorite scenes of all Star Wars films, but as a film itself, it's not very well paced. It has a lot of editing issues. It wasn't a film that like I sat through the whole thing and went, oh my God, this is great. Like I did the first and the last in that trilogy. But that's not to say that there isn't importance to it. But if you really are looking at like what a sequel does for a franchise, I mean, people loved Star Wars. When it came out, it was a phenomenon. The first movie was a phenomenon unlike any other in the history of pop culture. So much so that there was no way that anything could eclipse it, not even its sequel, The Empire Strikes Back, as good as it was. So if you look at Star Trek, which is kind of this geeky show that like, some people watched, and a movie that didn't do so well, and that second movie was so damn good, it's hard to, I don't know, it's like apples and oranges comparing the first Star Trek movie and The Wrath of Khan. I mean, that's a true sequel. It's just dynamic in every regard.
Oh my goodness. What is happening here? Are you leaning towards Star Trek?
I would never want to vote against my favorite franchise of all time, but I will in this case. I'm going with Wrath of Khan.
Whoa! I can't believe I'm hearing.
This is getting
I
tough
can't
for
either.
Trevor.
I can't either.
Trevor, dude, it's 2-2 at this point. We gotta
Can't
nail
believe it.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think they're completely different in comparisons between what they did for the whole standard of their franchises, but I think Star Wars slightly gets the edge just because of the popularity of Baby Yoda right now. Baby Yoda doesn't have any impact if Empire Strikes Back never comes out.
That's a true statement.
Would not exist.
Yep.
Exist it would not.
So, are you making it a final?
Sounds like he is.
He's still scratching his chin. I don't know if he's 100% sold. I think he's still debating internally.
This is kind
It's
of a
tough
big
just
one.
because
he's wiping
if you
sweat
take
from the
Star
brow.
Trek by itself, man, Star Trek Wrath of Khan, I think I enjoy personally more than Empire Strikes Back. As just a watchable
this
film,
isn't-
but that's
but
not
that's
one
not
of
a
the
part of the
skills.
rules.
That's
That
not one of the
wasn't the
skills.
True.
And the like Star Trek, what brings it down though is that you have the search for Spock and you have the one where they're swimming with the whales following Wrath of Khan.
That's a good movie. That's a fun movie.
It kind of hurts the overarching curve.
Maybe.
I gotta go with Empire Strikes Back.
Star Wars moves on, ladies and gentlemen. All right. That's of the final 4.
Darn, I was gonna try to sneak one in there for you to change your mind, but
We got a lot more movies to get to, people. Let's move on. We got Aliens and T2 next. Terminator 2 or Aliens?
James Cameron showdown.
The two
Which
James
one did he
Cameron
do a better
movies.
job on?
My two favorite
valid
James
point.
Cameron movies. Oh God. Two great female protagonists.
Can I jump in here?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
These are one of my 2 favorite franchises. And
Right.
so it's like trying to choose your favorite kid.
Yeah.
You know,
Sophie's
it's like your
choice
favorite
here.
pet. It's
Everybody
Oh,
has a favorite kid.
I know. But you're not supposed to say it.
Speaking to
I mean,
this,
I know.
Oh God, how do you pick? I mean, T2 was on loop at my parents' house. My dad got the giant laser disc. He had
Yes.
the surround sound going on, and he would do that first intro, the and then the skull stomp and everything. That was
oh,
God.
was
And
the
that liquid metal guy, T1000. I'm not. I'm not doing the sound again. It was totally off. But then Aliens 2, it was a total left turn from the slow thriller stalker movie to this, Space Marines and just all out action. So they both advanced the franchise for me. If I had to pick one, I'd have to be Aliens, just because there was something about that final scene where she just goes badass and she stalks up on the stuff and she takes on the alien queen and then fights her in the
in the
power
mech
loader in the mech suit. And I liked mech. That was my thing back then.
Wearing
So
stompers.
Aliens 2 probably wins it for me. It changed the storyline. It wasn't just this boring thriller.
You can't call the first one boring.
I'm not
I
boring, but
can.
it was slow.
It can't be at times. Yeah.
The
It
term
was
is
slow.
slower paced.
Yeah. Slower pace, yeah.
It was more of a horror film, the first
It
one.
was.
than
It was a horror.
an action film. Yeah.
And I
So-
just recently rewatched Terminator 2, and the movie, the story still holds up, but the graphics, they're okay, but they're like, oh wow, this was bad, but it was so good back then.
You can't judge the graphics by today's standards, though.
I would
Well,
say the graphics
even
are
just-
better than a lot of movies today, honestly, but that's just me.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like more realistic stuff and explosions rather than CGI, but yeah, some of the CGI wasn't as good as it could be nowadays. Anyways,
Well, then
Yeah,
Aliens also used a lot of practical effects. For a
They
lot
did.
of-
That's what Aliens has an edge there in terms of visuals.
Agreed.
Yeah, man. God, oh wow.
H.R. Geiger.
I'm not
landscape.
next. Someone else go.
Not it.
I'll go.
The tough one. Okay,
Okay,
go,
you know,
Sully.
Slay's gonna go. Good. Okay.
So I think this is the toughest matchup of the entire
It is.
bracket so far and in this round. And I agree with pretty much everything you guys said. Alien was good film. Aliens blew it away. It's the gold standard for the entire Aliens franchise, which after that really started to suffer. I liked 3 and some of the subsequent ones, but they never recaptured what Aliens was. That was such a wonderful movie. Terminator 2, the first one was iconic, but the second one again was just a step up in every way. It led to, like you said, the CGI at the time was groundbreaking. It was some of the best we had ever seen. A liquid metal dude who can walk through bars and walk out of fire, and that was all amazing. And then
Watching him get the bullet points on him was insane. Seeing
just
that for the
walk it
first
off.
time. Yeah, and then watching it melt back into his suit. Oh,
where he does the
Awesome.
arm through the mom drinking the milk.
Yes.
Yes.
Ah, that was so
Oh.
cool. And Schwarzenegger at his probably still his prime. Everything from like Commando, Predator, Terminator 2,
Right.
all those were just Schwarzenegger in his prime. I go back and forth when I was reading this earlier today, but I think ultimately I have to go Terminator 2.
Okay.
nice.
Okay.
It just, there's something about that one. If I had to choose between those two, I think I'd rather watch Terminator 2.
Trevor,
There you go.
you had some.
Yeah.
You were going to go somewhere.
The tough one, like, so Star Wars and Star Trek are both relevant today. They both have things that are going on streaming or various types. We had a Terminator that came out last year. It bombed hard.
Dark Fate.
Aliens Covenant was pretty terrible as too.
Forgot
So
that
both of them are really
yeah, I
not
forgot
doing
that
that well recently. So they both had sequels that in the 80s, their standout, it's like, oh, this franchise is going to be around forever. I mean, Back to the Future 2 shows like Terminator 19 or whatever on the billboard.
Does it?
Yeah,
No,
there's the whole
no.
Jaws, and then there's
Jaws.
Terminator jokes about it together.
Oh, okay.
And so Terminator, they both kind of have fallen off. So when we're talking about longevity and relevancy in pop culture, you kind of throw both out the window for both of these. So then you just go back
Yeah.
to kind of the quality of the films themselves. And for me, I can watch Terminator 2 anytime that's on, just whatever. It seems like there's so many specific scenes that are different. Like Aliens, they kind of all build into the same structure of it. Like you understand that there's, it's going to be action sequence. Terminator, it seems like it's a little different. It just seems like you could take a scene by itself, like whether they're in the jail cell or when they're, in the car or the truck's going after and the javelin goes through them. It's different scenes, as Aliens is more kind of fully encountered on the ship. It's all kind of based in the same structure. So I'm going with Terminator. Close, but Terminator just, It fits.
All right. So,
So we
two
have
Terminators,
2 Terminator
one Alien.
and 1 Aliens.
What about you, Alex?
Here we go again.
Prague wants to
Dude.
be a tiebreaker. Go,
I
Alex.
do.
You're not gonna
you know
be,
what's
It's not
man.
gonna happen, huh?
Sorry, buddy. No, I'm Terminator all the way. I love Terminator. Love everything about. I mean, Terminator 2 is fantastic. Like Sully was mentioning, even the practical effects in Terminator were still phenomenal. They were just gorgeous. And oh, man, come on, the shotgun flip while riding a motorcycle. It doesn't get cooler than that, man.
Guns N' Roses.
Guns N'
Yeah.
Roses, man.
I mean,
The weakest part of that movie was Eddie Furlong.
Right?
Are you kidding me? No way. He was
Sir.
another podcast. We'll talk about it. Not gonna.
You know, Alex wanted to be him as a kid, right?
He
No,
was
wait,
always
no.
the second choice.
He was perfect for that role. He was
Well,
perfect.
he kind
for
of
the-
was, I guess. Yeah. To a
Anyway,
point.
but you know what? I'm gonna leave it at that. Terminator 2 is mine. I mean,
So-
that really rounds that out. But Prague, I would love to hear what you have to say.
No, my pick was going to be Terminator 2, but I do want to touch on Aliens a little bit because it is one of my favorite movies as well. It's such, what you said. It's like it's Marines in space, and as a kid, like me and my best friend would play Marines all the time. That's what we did. Like we were obsessed with that stuff in that movie and all the big guns they had and flamethrowers. It was absolutely insane. And if you watch the director's cut of Aliens, it's just nothing but more of that stuff. I mean, it's maybe not exciting for most people probably, but if you're geeky into that kind of stuff, it's fun. But I don't know if it necessarily lends to the film itself for that reason. But Terminator 2 is my favorite action movie of all time. It's one of my favorite. It's in my top 5 films of all time too. So it's hard for me to say no to that film. And my best friend's dad actually worked in the building they blew up. At the end of the movie, so he got to watch it live blow up when it happened. So that was pretty
R.I.P.
cool.
Best friend's dad.
I was about to
He was
say. I hope
in
he
the
made it out
building.
safe.
Oh, I misunderstood.
Yes.
Wild.
No, here's the thing
Sacrificing
about.
himself for film.
But here's the thing about Terminator 2 that makes it a better sequel than many sequels, in my opinion, is that it actually has a definitive ending. Like you can end perfectly on that final scene on the black the tar pit, driving off into the who knows and into the unknown. But that's pretty much the end of that story, really. You didn't need any more sequels after that. So that's all. That's what I got. For that. Yeah.
Nice try, Corgi. We're moving on, baby. That's 2 now into our final of 4. We're going to move on now to Godfather Part 2 and Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers. Fellas, take it away.
Go, Prague.
Okay.
I volunteer, Prague.
All right. The Godfather Part 2 is such a phenomenal movie, but it's not the one that I rewatch as much. Like I rewatch The Godfather Part 1 more than Part 2 for some reason, even though I know Part 2 is better. It's the way it is. And I don't know why that is. Maybe I just enjoy the first one more, even though I know that. For Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers, when the original trilogy came out, I wasn't as big of a fan of The Two Towers. But after the extended edition came out and I started watching, because I've watched these movies like a billion times, or one of my favorite franchises of all time, I really grown to love it. And Alex is taking pictures of me or something. I don't know what's going on. Anyway, I've lost my train of thought. So I will pick. I guess I'll pick quality in this one. I'll just go with Godfather Part 2. I think it's the one that most people think about as like one of the great sequels of all times. It's one of the most iconic films of all times. The locations are beautiful out there at Lake Tahoe. It's a phenomenal piece of cinema. So, and acting too. I mean, you have some of the best performances by any actors ever. So there you go. That's my
If you
choice.
guys don't mind, I want to go next.
Should I take pictures of you?
Lord of the Rings. I'm going Lord of the Rings, man. I love action movies, and I also haven't seen Godfather Part 2. So I just want that to be quick, and now it's up to you guys.
Ripped the Band-Aid off. I'll go next.
At least you know.
This is a tough one. They're all tough, but this is tough because I haven't watched Godfather Part 2 since probably like mid-90s. And it was a phenomenal film. But that franchise was done after 3. Really didn't go on to anything else. I mean, they're amazing films.
Yeah.
Whereas Lord of the Rings, not only did it spur, there's the trilogy, and then we got the Hobbit trilogy, which we didn't necessarily need, but we got it anyway. And now we're going to get a television show on Amazon based on Lord of the Rings. And I feel like you could say that's a testament to the books, to the novels. But I think if Two Towers had failed, if it had been a horrible movie, we never would have gotten a third. We wouldn't have got Hobbit. We wouldn't be seeing the series most likely. So I think ultimately the impact on pop culture is probably Lord of the Rings: Two Towers.
Oh,
Easily.
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to define pop culture too. Godfather's in there, but it's not really mainstream these days.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Not nowadays. I was going to say, my only little rebuttal would be, I feel like The Godfather really brought out certain, like, it kind of jump-started a whole genre. I mean, you've got Sopranos probably wouldn't exist without Godfather. I mean, Goodfellas. You've got
Casino. Yeah.
Exactly. Any
The
mobster
Irishman.
movie. Any
The
mobster
Irishman.
movie.
Yeah.
Exactly. So The Irishman, which, I mean, yeah.
I mean,
Anyway,
they're basically all the same movie.
It's all the same movie, and I think that's one of the reasons why I don't care for mob movies myself. But I just wanted that. I mean, without Godfather, we wouldn't have all this other stuff in pop culture. So, but I think Lord of the Rings has a way. I mean, there's memes of Lord of the Rings still playing today. So, yeah, I'm still sticking with Lord of the Rings.
All right, Corgi, what do you got?
I'm gonna go Two Towers. Hi. I watched the trilogy for The Godfather. Not a big fan. I'm gonna echo what Alex said. They were good movies, great films, great pieces of cinematography, and like very iconic, a lot of quotable stuff. But I was never a mobster person. I tried to finish Sopranos. I think I'm still on the 3rd or 4th season. I haven't finished it yet.
Sopranos is amazing.
It is.
You should change that right now.
I know.
Change that right
It's
now.
on the list.
Like,
Still
just
on
put
the
your mic
list.
down, walk away, go finish it.
Please get to season
So
5.
Two Towers is going to win, but I do have a qualm with Two Towers. I found the treants. They are the most boring scenes of that movie. It was like they talk so slow, like they're so insignificant to me. I know that they help, defeat that second tower, Saruman's tower. Was it Saruman? Yeah. But that's my only qualm. That's not my favorite of the trilogy. But between the two, Godfather 2 and the Two Towers would have to go for mine.
Fantastic.
It's
Ladies and gentlemen,
interesting
Two
because,
Towers.
well, Two Towers isn't good. That's what's so interesting. It's the weakest of the 3. So it's really interesting to move on because Godfather Part 2 is the best of the 3.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it so, like, how are we going to decide, like, what I prefer shouldn't matter at all. Like, oh, I don't like mobster movies, or I haven't seen Godfather Part 2 isn't really a relevant negative or concern with the movie.
But one of the rules was, what is something that's still relevant today, or relevant in pop culture,
right? Or propels.
Yeah, Lord of the Rings
franchise.
fell hard on its own sword with The Hobbit. Like, they're going to make that Amazon show. It will have, like, an audience, but The Hobbit really did a disservice to the books and J.R.R. Tolkien and the whole fandom.
Oh, those films are unwatchable. Oh God.
Hey man, if you want to change your answer, you're more than welcome. It's just gonna lose in the next round.
Oh, I didn't change my answer. I didn't even pick it. I mean, Godfather is a no-brainer for me. I would have picked Harry Potter over Lord of the Rings in the last round, so it's no big deal. Godfather wins easy.
So what is that? Oh, it doesn't matter because it's Two Towers anyways. We'll move on from that. So that's a win for the Two Towers, it sounds like, unless someone wants to change their mind.
No, I don't.
Nope, isn't that okay? There you go. Okay.
That's a hard
Ladies
pass.
and gentlemen, we're on to our next piece of the bracket. Dark Knight versus Captain America: Winter Soldier. This is a good one, folks.
This is the big
DC versus Marvel.
Well, this is the big ground rule thing of what you focus on more. The Winter Soldier means more within the greater scheme of the MCU, but The Dark Knight is a better film. It's just much less significance in whatever DC is trying to put together.
Not put together, whatever they call it.
So it's a whole little like dissection point of what you focus on more in terms of valuing these picks.
Oh,
Right. Right.
wow.
Well, here's my thing, and I don't want to do this, and I'll go first this time. So, I love Christopher Nolan. Like I love the way his films look and feel, and that The Dark Knight, the way it was filmed on IMAX, all those scenes, like the fact that he paid that much homage and respect, time and money for one of my favorite characters of all time, Batman, like just is astounding. And you have, great performances by everybody, including Heath Ledger. But Captain America: The Winter Soldier, even though, and I enjoy the movie, I watched it several times. It's enjoyable for me. It's not my favorite of the MCU. I do think that it changed Captain America. Like when the first Captain America came out, he was still kind of that dorky Captain America that I knew in the comics that I didn't care for at all. I never liked Captain America. When I saw that movie, I'm like, I think I like Captain America now. Like he has some legitimate gravitas. He can be in a gritty kind of, noirish type spy thriller, and it was nothing that I expected. I didn't expect any twist and turn that was happening in that film. It was a bit of a mess at times, like muddled a bit, I think, by throwing in too many characters, but I feel like it's too significant in the MCU. It was really a tonal shift in the whole franchise as a whole. You can argue that there were a few others that were kind of like that too in tone, like Guardians of the Galaxy, but I think this did more for the entire franchise, including the actual Avengers movies. So I'm going to pick Captain America: The Winter Soldier, which is tough because Dark Knight is one of my favorite movies. I can watch that film anytime, but it's not about that. So, all right, who's next?
Yeah, how about you, Sully? You look like you're pondering something.
You volunteered me. I still don't know what my answer is. I'm going to figure it out while I'm speaking.
Okay.
Dark Knight.
That's how you do it.
The entire Nolan trilogy for Batman was the best thing DC ever did, hands down.
100%.
And I just wish we lived in a world where Nolan had stayed on to not only oversee that entire DCU.
To be the Kevin Feige of DC.
Oh my God.
Right.
The man can tell a story. You're right. The cinematography on all his films, the storytelling is just outstanding. Even his movies that I have no idea what's going on, which has been like the last 3, I still love watching them.
Right. You're just like, this is great.
Yeah. Great film. Dark Knight. Captain America: Winter Soldier, while technically a sequel to Captain America, is just one gear in a 24 part series, whatever that final number was. But as a direct follow-up to Captain America, a fantastic film, and like you said, a tonal shift in the entire MCU. If you take that film out of the MCU, it crumbles.
Yeah.
Like,
you don't get Black Panther. You don't. I mean, you
might have gotten them, but you didn't get them in. God, what's such a great movie?
In the same way, right?
Yeah. God, it's tough going back and forth.
If you want to think on that, we can move over to Corgi while you're sitting there pondering.
No, he wants to do it.
No, I got to make my decision, and this pains me to have to pick between these two, but I think I got to go Dark Knight. Between the film, Heath Ledger, that trilogy by itself. You know what it is? We were talking about how these have an impact on pop culture and a lasting effect, right? While the DC universe may have fallen apart horribly after the Nolan trilogy, we live in a world where it's not over. Nolan could come back, and this would be the exact his resume would be, I want to come back and I want to take over DCU. Here's Dark Knight. Watch it again and get back to me. And they'd hire him in a second. There would be no debate. Like Whedon who, Zach who, like you guys get out of here. We're Nolan 100% now. So I'm going Dark Knight.
Okay. That's solid.
Nice.
All right.
You want to go next?
He's leaning
in.
Next.
I can go next.
Oh, okay.
I think it's really interesting in what's going on in the world right now with this whole virus thing. It was actually kind of interesting that there's now the video of the Joker from The Dark Knight talking about how people will start going nuts, and Oh, I wish I could remember exactly what the line
Agent
is.
of
but
Chaos.
Right. It's
Nice.
I mean it's perfect and it works beautifully because what he said it feels like it's actually happening right now with the way that people are going just crazy and having fights in grocery stores over toilet paper. And I mean, the Joker kind of predicted it in Dark Knight, which was really interesting to me whenever I saw that pop up in my feed. There is a lot of wonderful things and about Winter Soldier, and Sully, you said it perfectly that it is a gear in a bigger cog of what the Avengers whole thing is. Excuse me. Ooh. But Dark Knight is just one of those movies that you can go back and rewatch over and over and over again. And I mean, I feel like it really was the best out of the entire trilogy of the Batman series, the Nolan Batman series. If we didn't lose Heath Ledger, who knows what that could have become? Who knows what we could have had? My vote's going to be on Dark Knight on this one.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to see a magic trick?
I know. I was thinking it. It's so good.
How to do it.
And while you guys are thinking, I'm actually going to look up that quote because it's just perfect.
All right. Who's next?
You want to go, Trevor?
Sure. So, Winter Soldier, taken by itself, I don't know if it's a particularly great movie just because you have that whole Nick Fury sequence where he's in his car and getting shot and he digs a hole and fakes his death. And then you have Robert Redford included in the movie at all as like some upper or higher level adversary that has no really relevance. So that as a movie by itself, Dark Knight's the better film. That's not even a contest. So does it matter that just 3 movies of the Batman trilogy versus 23 movies in the MCU is those 23 movies help, block or hold up Captain America versus Dark Knight? And then I was thinking while you guys were talking about Joker, Joaquin Phoenix's Joker calls back to what Christopher Nolan's doing, because Christopher Nolan didn't really treat it like he was making a comic book movie. And that's what Joker is like. It's not like it's trying to be a comic book movie. And so that's why these kind of all the like Wonder Woman and Justice League and Batman vs Superman, they're doing their own takes on what Christopher Nolan did. Like they're like student project versions of what he was doing, but it's still his influence is directly related to everything that DC's doing. So it's not just in those 3 movies. So if you don't give Captain America the edge with the 23 overall films, then Dark Knight wins hands down.
So what's your choice?
Yeah, exactly.
I like that. Oh, Trevor.
I did feel like there was one more nugget of knowledge dropping our way after that last statement. It felt like he was going to say that, but then go, yeah, but it's Captain America Winter Soldier.
Right? All right.
You're not going to pick.
No, he doesn't do. This is what he does. Welcome to Trevor's life.
He said Dark
No, I
Knight.
picked Dark Knight.
Yeah,
Oh, he
You
did.
picked Dark Knight?
Yeah.
So it's 2-2 or 3-2?
Wait.
That's 3-1.
3-1?
Oh, so it doesn't
Okay.
matter now. Okay.
I'm glad it didn't matter because I am a huge Marvel fanboy. It's my jam. I mean, I don't know if I could pick Dark Knight over it. I know that was one of the rules. You can't pick what was your favorite, but I do think that Dark Knight was the better film, and it did progress the DCEU. And everyone has tried to imitate that trilogy with the other movies. And I would have felt really bad picking that over Marvel, just being such a big Marvel fan. So my pick was Dark Knight, but I'm glad I'm not the deciding factor.
Oh, look at that. Nice. Yeah, I'm a Marvel.
I got it once.
I'm more of a Marvel guy too, but
Yeah, I mean, you have to give Winter Soldier credit just because Iron Man 2 and the first Thor and Thor 2 and all those movies in a row weren't the best. And they needed Winter Soldier to kind of reboot and realign to the direction and path that they're on. We don't have the end game as good as it is. Captain America is telling everybody, or even On Your Left, that actually shows up in Winter Soldier. So that doesn't mean anything without Winter Soldier, but still, Dark Knight, that's how good it is.
I just got goosebumps when you said that, man.
Right?
God.
And what's great is they actually chose a story that's from a comic book. They didn't have to sit there and kind of create some dumb new story to try to fit, a narrative. They actually pulled a story that was written by a great writer in comics, and it worked out well. It was like it translated to screen, so it was a winning success for that. But so pour one out for that film.
Awesome job, guys. We are down to our final four. Now, we have talked to death about these movies in 2 episodes, and yet we're still talking about these movies. Yep. So let's start with the left side. We've got Empire Strikes Back versus Terminator 2. What movie is going to move on?
Are we doing that here today, too?
Oh yeah,
we're crowning a champion.
Oh Christ!
Champion tonight.
I'm gonna.
We'll be quick on this. All right.
I'm gonna need a water break, some Gatorade, maybe a snack. This is
electrolytes.
My heart is pounding. My watch just told me my heart rate's too high. God bless.
Fantastic.
So Empire versus Terminator 2.
Oh, I'm having hot flashes.
That age thing.
Hey, take off the sweater.
Oh,
no, put it back on. Put it back
on. For those watching on YouTube, who's going to lead the way with this one? Star Wars Empire Strikes Back versus Terminator 2.
Not it.
I'll do it.
Not it.
I'll jump in.
All right, Corgi.
Ooh.
I love Star Wars. It's not my major fandom, but I'm a big fan of it. But I'm more of an action sci-fi thriller type of person. So I'm going to go with Terminator 2. I know we talked about it before, but Terminator 2 wins for me because, I don't know, growing up, I think I watched it in the theater with my dad 3 or 4 times.
Oh, yeah.
And so I know we're not supposed to pick our favorite ones, but that's the one that kind of spurned my love of the series. I mean, I keep watching them. Every time they make a new one, I'm still going to the theater and watching it, even though I know it might not be that great, but Terminator 2 is mine.
Nice. It's a good reason. It's hard to stick to the rules at this point.
Well,
without repeating.
You guys said that early on and said you couldn't pick your favorite film. But let's be honest, that's got to be one of the determining factors in all this is rewatchability and what it meant to you. There are all the other factors as well, but that's always going to play into it a little bit. It's got to.
Has to be some bias.
Yeah. He's right.
All right, I'll go next.
Okay.
There you go.
I mean, I just realized this one's an easier choice than I thought it would be because I already voted against Empire Strikes Back when I picked Star Trek 2. But I definitely voted for Terminator 2, so it would be a little flippy-floppy if I decided to now go with Empire.
Oh, that's great.
Well, it was a different matchup back then.
Matchups all roll out differently.
That's old
That's
stuff.
True. That's true. All right.
I'd quote Friday, but I don't cuss on podcasts.
Sully doesn't cuss.
Not off the air. Terminator 2, I think I got to pick. Again, like you said, I'm a giant Star Wars fan. I have been my whole life. I'm more of a Return of the Jedi guy, New Hope, over Empire Strikes Back. Terminator 2 is just always going to have that special place in my heart. And to go back to what I said about Dark Knight, I know I'm jumping around, but I think there's life left in the Terminator franchise if they can find a way to do it correctly. So far, unfortunately, they have failed multiple times. But I think somebody will eventually figure it out. Maybe Cameron will come back and take that over when he's done doing 82 Avatar films.
I'm going to say there's a lot of Avatar films to go.
I honestly hope the second one fails miserably so he'll go back to other stuff. But that's just me.
Oh, no.
It'll be on the secondary heroes.
Yeah, right? Joining us this week is James Cameron. Welcome to the podcast.
He's watching right now. Terminator 2, all the way.
Okay.
That's amazing. You know what? I'll go next because I'm actually going to choose Star Wars on this one. I love what you guys said. Both of you guys said excellent. And Corgi, I'm with you. I do love the action sci-fi stuff. But Star Wars, I think it was more on the lines of the practical effects, the stop motion effects, and how they even... For me, I think Star Wars just had it for me. And I'm going to lean on Star Wars on this one. And it edged for me, so I'm going Star Wars.
Okay.
You guys.
Are we talking about the original?
I think his heart stopped.
Original theater release of Star Wars, or like the director's cut where they added all the scenes?
Ugh.
Oh no,
Oh, no,
those,
no. Original.
those are
No,
gone.
okay, original theater. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one where Han Solo's stepping on Jabba the Hutt's tail or whatever while he's talking to him.
No, that stuff. No.
Oh, that was bad. That was real bad.
Yeah. All right. You want to go next, Trevor, or not?
Sure.
Okay.
I barely picked Empire Strikes Back over Star Trek, but that's, I think, a different challenge. Terminator gains new relevancy because I forgot about the Sarah Connor Chronicles on Fox, which was an amazing show.
Yep.
And
Nahidi.
just-
Oh yeah.
yeah, the ideas of you could have robots back in kind of our time and send them the whole times. I'm always into time travel that isn't Back to the Future, so got to
For
give
some
credit there.
reason, Back to the Future, and I don't know
Hot
why.
take.
That last note was just unnecessary.
Oh, now you done. See, Alex?
I'm not as big a fan as DeLorean, but I still got to defend it. R.I.P. DeLorean.
Pouring out for him.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Oh,
for
wait,
Sarah
he's
Connor
back.
Colin-
Oh,
Did
He's
Terminator
back.
2 Back to the
it's a
Future?
podcast. All right.
Yeah.
Sorry, I
think it
had to
did.
take a breather.
Take a lap.
So you're choosing T2 as
No,
well?
I don't know.
Oh.
Because Empire Strikes Back just, in terms of iconic things that people reference over and over again, Luke getting that reveal is probably the most iconic thing that's any movie's ever created. And then to have Han frozen in carbonite and saying, "I love you, I know." And then combine that with the Hoth scene where he's in a Tauntaun and he has the Wampa and all those great creatures from that.
Yoda!
You're not even talking about Luke and Yoda and that whole Dagobah sequence and finding himself and seeing his own face in Darth Vader's helmet. It's tough to pick against Star Wars, okay? I hate that the prequels ruined Darth Vader and just ruined everything that Empire Strikes Back stands for. But even with that, Frog, you go. You tell me something to convince.
I just noticed you guys would do a tie, and then
Okay.
someone would have to do a tiebreaker.
Let me just tell you that this is my childhood right here. These are like favorite films of all time stuff. I mean, I remember Terminator 2 is my first R-rated movie that I saw in a theater. I snuck out because my parents weren't home and my older brother said, "You're fine to go see that movie." So it was my first R-rated movie. I was so terrified that a nuclear bomb would go off. Like there's so much going through my head at that age. I've never seen anything like that before. But then again, there's Star Wars, and like those scenes, like you mentioned, are like the scenes that I reference all the time in my head. I've probably watched both of these films the most of any films ever, like in my entire catalog of films. So I don't know how to choose between the two, other than to say that I feel like, and I think this is going to be what's going to be the tiebreaker in my head, is that Empire Strikes Back leaves with a huge cliffhanger. Right?
It
Whereas
leaves you
Terminator 2 does.
clamoring for more.
Well, this is the thing. This is what a good movie should do: is finish a story while also making you want more, which is what Terminator 2 does. It's like, oh my God, that was so phenomenal. You don't need to go anywhere else because you completed that story, but man, it would be awesome to keep seeing more stuff. Whereas
Or
with
that it was so good it ruins all future projects.
Right. It could, yeah. which also could kind of get
Which
to
has
the
happened.
guess, but it is Star Wars, and Empire Strikes Back is so iconic for being like what most film geeks would say is like one of the great sequels of all time, probably the
It's
benchmark,
the
right?
sequel standards that other people like, oh, if we're going to make a sequel, we need it to have, characters in turmoil. We got to leave them all in terrible shape, and we have to make our trilogy just like this.
It almost kind of ruins it because what it did was it kind of created franchises that were unnecessary in the future. Like, oh my God, we can now make this instead of a 2-part story. Oh, we could make it into a 50-part story forever and ever and have everyone end in a cliffhanger and a big reveal. So I kind of want to break the mystique right now, and I'm going to pick Terminator 2.
Oh no!
Question for you while
no!
while Trevor's contemplating, was there a trilogy before the original Star Wars trilogy?
No.
No, hold on.
Yeah,
let's think.
Godfather came out before, right?
The third part didn't.
No, the third part did not.
No.
The third part, I remember that. I saw that in theaters. That was
Okay.
like in the 90s.
Well, the third part came out before Return of the Jedi.
007.
Don't
Return of
know
the Jedi
about-
came out in the 80s.
Oh, there you go.
There you
Almost
go.
there
you go.
Nice.
Yeah,
Good
Nice.
call.
another great franchise.
We didn't
Wait,
even mention.
so
Oh,
I
that's okay.
dude, I think that's 3 for
Yeah, that's already 3.
Terminator.
It doesn't matter that I pick Empire Strikes Back because I was also thinking of the Boba Fett and the dining room sequence where Han and Leia get to meet her dad for the first time, and he just blocks away the laser blast.
But here's the thing about that: it's like all is great scenes, but not a great story, in my opinion. I think it's I don't know, it's just not well paced, in my opinion.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm so surprised at what this bracket looks like right now.
Oh, I am too. I was not expecting myself to pick. I didn't think
beauty of the
T2 was
bracket.
going to win, honestly. I didn't
Yeah.
think T2 was going to make it this far. So I was like,
Terminator
oh,
2 is the first in the finals.
wow.
Wow. Okay.
Alright.
This is insane. I can't believe I'm seeing it. Lord of the Rings.
Yep.
Lord of the Rings against the Dark Knight. Fellas.
I'll go with the Dark Knight.
Dark
I'm
Knight.
going Dark Knight.
Dark Knight.
Wow, that was a quick one.
That was a blowout.
The previous 30 minutes. Dark Knight.
Okay. We're now in the finals. That was quick. Terminator 2 against Dark Knight. You know, people are probably sitting at home or sitting in their cars. They're obviously not sitting in traffic. But they're
Right.
listening to us right now going,
What the
how
hell?
the hell did we get here?
Yeah,
How
it's
did we
funny
get
because I
two?
should have balanced the
Terminator
bracket
versus Dark
better to
Knight.
have Empire Strikes Back face off against Terminator in the final. I didn't think Terminator would actually beat Aliens, so this is
It's
fun.
your Shrek. It's your Shrek.
It's your Shrek.
Just like Eddie
Wow.
Furlong probably said when he was in the middle of filming, what the hell is going on?
Yep.
Yeah, while he was rolling around in his piles of cash.
Yeah, he spent all that. He's been broke for the
14,
last
yeah.
25 years.
Yeah, totally. Well, they tried bringing him back for one of the newer movies, didn't they?
For Dark Fate. Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well,
Was that actually him or CGI?
That was him.
That was him.
Yeah. Check IMDb.
Wow.
So who wants to start, man? This is a tough one.
I'll go.
Well, just okay.
Oh, okay.
I'll save y'all. I'll bite this bullet. Terminator 2 versus Dark Knight. If I'm just looking at those two side by side, I'm going to pick Terminator 2 as my favorite of the two to watch for rewatchability. And as far as impact on pop culture, I dare say Terminator 2 has had a bigger impact on my life with pop culture. And as far as longevity of the franchises they were a part of, Terminator 2 was hands down the best. And that's why they kept trying other movies after that, because they wanted to recapture what we got in Terminator 2. They've never been able to successfully do it. And sans Christopher Nolan coming back to the DCEU, there's no hope there. It's Terminator 2 for the win.
All right.
This is incredible. Wow.
no,
I'm
I'm just
loving
dumbfounded straight. Oh, this is so tough.
Interestingly, both of them are kind of broken down. Like their franchises have fallen apart. You know, if we look at 2020, DC and Terminator are not in the best shape. So that means you just have to go back to the release of whatever year they came out in, and then look at it just in those 3 movies that they were part of.
Yeah.
And Terminator 2 versus Dark Knight, I feel like I haven't watched Dark Knight in long enough because all of a sudden all these scenes are popping up in my head and I'm like, oh damn, that was amazing. That was amazing. Because I watched Terminator 2 just to remind myself about it. I watched Aliens and Terminator 2 because I had a tough time deciding. And Terminator 2, it's a ton of fun. But Dark Knight is more philosophical and like just pushing like boundaries of what is possible of a superhero movie. Like Terminator 2 is an action movie. It nails that. Yeah, and Dark Knight kind of is like maybe Captain America Winter Soldier or any Marvel movie exists. Like to have Thanos as a bad guy who isn't just purely evil, or to have Black Panther and have Killmonger who has actually reasons and everything that Marvel's doing. Maybe they take cues from what Dark Knight did. So the influence could be greater. I don't know if Terminator even has influence outside of Terminator. Did it, like movies in the 90s be like, oh, we want to do what Terminator did? I have no idea, honestly.
I would argue yes. Maybe not from a storytelling standpoint,
But
but
the
from
style,
cinematography, special effects, action. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was influential in that way. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, you
definitely
can say
the look.
every movie on this list has had an impact on the movies that followed. Whether or not it was a negative or a positive one is for another debate, but I think you could argue that with every film here.
Okay.
So,
So
oh, do you want to go? Hey, man, hold on. Who did you choose?
he didn't choose. That's what he does. He doesn't choose.
Yeah.
and
You didn't
he
choose?
chose.
I
He's
told you
getting
to
never
ride the
chooses.
line.
He's on a
He's
journey.
never chosen. Yeah.
Well,
he's on a
Frog, it
journey.
sounds like you would like to go next.
Well, I do not want to go next, but I will if you want me to.
I'll go next because
All
I
right.
have
Fire away.
I have an idea in my head.
I hope.
Longevity. Terminator 2 is almost 30 years old. Are we going to be talking about Dark Knight in
Yes.
20 years from now? Because I think it's only or will Dark Knight get lost in the mix of everything that's trying to be a Dark Knight? I mean,
think the
there's so many
difference is
Jokers. There's so many Batmans now. I mean, it's almost confusing. I lose track of who's who anymore. Terminator, Arnold
that
Schwarzenegger. I mean, Gunflip. I'm going Terminator 2.
On the idea that you brought up, think how many times they've tried Batman. You know, how many people have played Batman and how many times they've done necessarily poor Batman movies or Batman movies you forget. Like, they've tried Batman a bunch.
Yep.
That one stands out. You know, you want to talk about, how about longevity of Batman and have the very best Batman? You know, Batman's been around since 1939 or whatever.
That's true, but Batman had
Gun
never
flip.
hit a. It had never hit
He
anything
does
like
have a type of gun flip, though.
But what I'm saying is, like, eventually they are gonna make a Batman that's gonna blow Dark Knight out of the water. Eventually that's gonna happen because they're gonna continue to try and they're gonna try and they're gonna try again with
They can try
Batman.
with
Batman's
Terminator,
never
they can
going
win.
away. Sorry, I
They
didn't
keep
hear what
trying
you
with
said.
Terminator and they're failing.
They even
That's
brought back
true.
Schwarzenegger.
Right.
Yeah, Sarah
Yeah.
Connor.
I think Nolan will return at some point to the DCEU. Can you imagine if we got an old version of Batman? What is the, not the animated series, but what's the one where he
Old
ends
Man?
up training the younger
Oh, you
kid?
talk Batman Beyond?
Yeah, like Batman
Yeah.
Beyond. Imagine if you
Yeah.
brought back Christian Bale and he did
That'd
that
be great.
with
People have
Nolan
been
directing.
talking about that.
Oh,
Yeah.
that
And
would
then
revive the
bring
whole thing.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt as being Robin. Oh,
Yes.
that would be so
he'd
rad.
come back as Nightwing.
Yeah.
even better. Yeah.
Well,
Even
nobody's
better.
seen Robin in the last one.
I would watch that without seeing a single trailer. I'd be there
Right.
opening day.
100%.
Sign me the up.
Yep.
Nice
Nicely
editing.
done.
Self-centered.
If I had a foghorn, I'd play that and switch the word. But
We do somewhere.
I'm still going T2. Terminator 2 for
So we have two T2s, one undecided, a corgi, and a
two
Prague.
T2s.
Do you want me to go, or do you want Corgi? Do you want to go?
I'll go,
You can
I'll go.
Okay.
better go, Corger. You're gonna be the
No, I don't want to be at the tail end of this. I could pick T2 and we'd just be done with it, right?
Yeah.
But
Oh, and I bet that's what you
I
wanted
do,
to say.
I'm sweating.
I do what Ollie
Might
did,
wanna-
just talk it out. All right. So T2 is me and my dad's favorite. I know we're not supposed to use that as a thing, but it is a bias. Oh boy. And then I like all of Trevor's points. But Batman's been around since what 30,
39.
39. So it's
I only know that because Trevor said it like 2
Yep.
minutes
same-
I only know it because the Funko Pop said the 80-year anniversary last year.
Oh, math. Math is
There you
hard.
go. Old math.
Oh.
Dark Knight holds a special place in my heart because it was the last movie my best friend watched in the series before he passed away. So I had to watch the first one without him. So that one always strikes home. I really would have liked to see what the DCEU would have been like had Nolan took the helm.
Yeah.
And yeah, they really are trying to recapture that fire, that spirit of, to be dark but also not campy, or have some humor in it. I think Wonder Woman's doing an okay job at it. It's a different film, but
What is 1984 going to be?
I don't know. They pushed that film back, or the release.
That's a future sequel bracket.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Mm.
I'm gonna have to go Dark Knight. I feel bad going against T2, but Dark Knight really did develop a Joker beyond the animated series one that I knew and grew up with. This agent of chaos. He just wants to see the world burn. It's very memeable. It's very quotable. Yeah, and even what Alex said is it is relevant to today. You have everyone's in social isolation and the hoarding of commodities and whatnot. So, yeah, mine's gonna have to go to Dark Knight.
Nice, awesome. Are we at a tie? Are we at a tie right now?
Frog
And it
has
comes
to
down.
go.
Ah,
2-1. T2 2. Dark Knight 1.
Okay.
DK,
So-
Drift King.
That's right.
I catch that reference.
So, I was just thinking when you were talking about Dark Knight. So when we think about Batman Begins versus Dark Knight, Batman Begins really is almost like an indie kind of film. It's very small in scale, right? It's all about him training and becoming like Batman. Whereas the sequel is a true sequel. It's him as Batman the whole time. And it's just so large in scale and scope. And he travels the world and has this insane adversaries, actually. Because you also have Two-Face. So it's... God, it's such
Harvey
a
Dent. He's such a
fantastic looking
good
film.
one.
I actually own both of these movies on multiple formats. That's how much I love them.
Same.
Gosh. And T2, I mean, that's like Corgi said, that's my sentimental favorite. It's the one that's tied to my childhood. How to choose between these two? What's the cultural impact? I don't know. Do you have any leeway on this, Trevor? Are you leaning any one way, or do you want me to say something?
Wait, no collusion?
Hold on, just wondering.
Collusion? I know this is y'all's podcast, but no. Make a decision.
All right. So it's 2 T2. God. And 1 Dark Knight. And
This is riveting material.
do I go
How
against
would
my
you-
favorite?
How would you have voted if you didn't hear our votes already?
I don't know. That's the thing. I wasn't expecting these two to be against each other in the final,
God no.
so I didn't have this prepared.
God no.
I was really expecting
movie
Lord of the
theaters
Rings 2 Towers versus Shrek 2. This
Oh,
is just a real
That,
surprise.
that's what I prepped for. It's ridiculous.
All the graphics you put together are unusable now. It's a real
Out the
shame.
So
That
I'm gonna.
prize pack of Shrek 2 with the ring that you put together could have been great.
Yeah, I think the impact here, overall, because I think there is longevity to it, is going to have to be the Dark Knight. So I'm picking the Dark Knight.
Oh, it's a tie game.
Oh boy, I'm
It's
puckered
a
up
tie
now.
game.
Buzzer beater there, Trevor.
Oh snap!
Hmm.
I can't
Because
believe
then
that.
I was thinking of the quote, "The night is darkest just before the dawn," and
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty iconic. But then when you mentioned Harvey Dent, I'm like, oh, that's right. Dark Knight ran too long because they didn't know what to do with the Two-Face storyline. They rushed it, and that was the one negative of that whole film.
So
And
one
then
negative.
Terminator 2 is coincidentally enough a 2 seed in our bracket, which fits into our brand. And then the loser necessarily, though, is a secondary hero. So that's a tough balancing act as well.
Oh gosh.
And
a
I was going to
conundrum.
pick Empire Strikes Back, and Terminator 2 beat Empire Strikes Back, so I'm going to go with Terminator 2 by sheer power of that.
Oh!
There you go, Highborn. And you know
We
what?
got
I
a
am
winner, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm not mad. I am not mad.
Not mad.
T2 is up
Well,
there.
this one of my favorite films of all time. So
Super
I
sentimental.
believe it.
Cue the Guns N' Roses. It's on, baby.
Who on their bracket chose T2? Because wow, I wasn't expecting that at all. I don't think anybody was.
to win, but not for this. Like for myself personally, but wow.
Crazy.
I did- if I had to
Easily.
pick
The Dark Knight is the secondary hero, just a heads up.
a- There you go.
Oh,
Good.
that's far home.
Oh, you're right. You're very right.
This is really interesting. Again, I hope that you guys filled out brackets out there, and we would love to see what you guys said, because this is kind of a surprise. I saw this going a totally different way.
Yeah, me too. So that was kind of fun, actually.
Shrek was included.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. I got so many texts today saying, "I can't believe you were leaning on Shrek that whole time."
That was
But
an
I
odd
didn't-
flex.
I didn't know the rules very well. Well, cool. Thanks, guys, for joining us in this bracket of sequels.
Yeah.
Second movie's sequel.
This was a great idea, guys. I really enjoyed participating in this. Good call.
Nice. Thanks. It was fun. Congrats to T2.
Yeah.
Yeah. They finally
too.
won an award after all these years.
Oh.
They didn't win a single one, like even
No, I'm just kidding.
digital
They won.
arts or whatever.
Visual effects.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm sure.
I-
I'm sure.
We should do this again with video games. There's a lot of sequels.
Maybe we'll get Mulehorn game.
Yeah.
Oh.
Beers and a mic and mute. I know that Mulehorn on his Twitter, he created a bracket for video games. So yeah, that might be
Get a sequel, the bracket.
yeah, we
Nice.
could do a sequel to it.
All right, good call, Corgi.
Very cool. Well, thanks again, Corgi and Sully, for joining us. If you guys like what you heard tonight or today, whenever you're listening, check us out over on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Secondary Heroes for fun pop culture news, episode drops, secondary interactions with you, our fans. And if you haven't already, please rate and review our podcast over on iTunes, Spotify, and whatever you listen to. Google Play, is that at one? I don't know. And if you have questions, please leave them in the comments. We would love to answer them on air, and we'll make sure to get to those as well. Sully and Corgi, how can people get a hold of you guys?
Go ahead, Corey.
I'm a Corgi Commander everywhere on social media, everywhere. That's CORGIKOHMANDER.
Nice.
And I am CS Sully on Twitter and Instagram. Those are the two big ones for me. That's CSSULLY.
No.
Excellent. Well, thank you
Awesome.
again,
So-
guys. And
Yeah. That's our sequel bracket. Congrats again to Terminator 2 Judgment Day. Who would have guessed it? Like true March Madness fashion. To everyone listening, we hope you enjoyed, and we'll talk to you next time.
Nerds unite.
This is Prague. I'll be back.
19 sequels that made much more than the first film. That is your clickbait of the week.